Um, we've been experiencing a lot of fire outbreaks lately, but this has to do with development. As society develops, our risks become complex, our processes become complex, and that is also prone to cause more losses if we don't take risk management precautions to deal with such exposures. If we have to maybe look at what has happened in Katamanto, we believe we've been hearing these electrical issues. These are risk exposures that needs to be dealt with to avoid such losses recurring. So the rate of increases of fire outbreaks in our country these days has to do mainly with increased risk and people not devising means to handle the exposures.
And I suppose one good way of handling those exposures would be through insurance.
Certainly.
So is fire insurance truly common policy in the Ghanaian business practice?
I should say fire insurance in the commercial sense, it's a compulsory or a legal requirement of every business entity.
Wait, say that again, because this is something I think is really interesting. You said it's a compulsory component.
Yes.
What makes it compulsory?
With the provisions of the Insurance Act, Act 724 of 2006, Section 184 makes it compulsory for every commercial premises to be insured.
No matter how big or small?
No. Once it's a commercial premises, and the Act defines a commercial premises to be any premises that the public will have free entry and exit in sense of obtaining recreation, education, service, or any form of business activity taking place in any premises.
So in the same way that vehicles are mandated by law to have a minimum third-party insurance, commercial premises, all premises that are open to the public are mandated by law to have fire insurance. In percentage terms, what would you say the rate of compliance is to this law?
It will be difficult to strike a percentage in the sense that we don't have the full data of all the commercial premises.
But just ballpark, snapshot from what you know.
I could say about 50%.
50%?
Yes.
You are very generous. I would have said less than 10. I would have hesitated to put it in double digits.
If you come to the formal sector, you have a greater percentage of them taking insurance. It's the informal that makes it a bit complex because we don't have the full data.
Okay, looking at a market such as Kantamanto market or the Makula market or the Agbogboloshe market, what is the complexity in providing every single operator, every single vendor or stall or even store owner with a minimum amount of fire insurance? What is the complexity?
Okay, the issue here is, the insurance companies, we know of these fires occurring in the markets, and it has become an issue of near certainty than a probability. And in insurance, we don't look at certainties, we look at probability. Now, we also will look at what are the features of this, let me call it assets in these markets that will have to be insured. There are people who have stores that are not enclosed. So are you going to insure the items in the open space? If they are closed for the day, what happens to their wear? If you have other people using wooden structures, now insurance companies will want to look at the risk exposures that you are introducing. Mind you, insurance is a pool where we have collected premiums from people with, let's say, standard construction, brick walls and other things. If you have to bring in someone who is having a wooden structure, then you are being unfair to the one who has paid his premium for the standard construction. So yes, we look at all these features and look at what we can do with the people at Katamanto. One other difficult situation from that segment of the market is that there are no proper record keeping. Said that if you are insuring someone and there's a loss, even to determine what was actually available at the time of the fire will be a difficult situation.
Is it possible to set a basic minimum? A basic minimum, something that would cover you up to an amount of, say, 50,000 or 20,000 or 10,000. Just set a basic minimum and make sure that everyone has some form of fire insurance. And if you have a store, your basic minimum is maybe 5,000. If you have a store, it's 10,000, and so on and so forth. Just going by the size of the premises and estimation, sort of the way that sometimes taxes are collected, or sometimes premiums are set in other parts of our lives.
Yeah, that could be done, and it's done mostly through the micro insurance sectors. There are a lot of micro insurance companies that are coming up, and they are focusing on such communities. But it also, again, has some inherent problems. I did mention the fact that you will not even be able to assess actual values at risk at the time of the loss.
I can hear you saying that the risk is simply too high to insure premises such as the Kantamanto market. Is that what you're saying?
Indirectly, it is.
That the risk is too high, so no insurer in their right frame of mind would issue any kind of fire insurance to places such as Kantamanto market.
I wouldn't say so. We can devise other products to tailor, meet the needs of the people in such segments, but it will have to be done. We need large numbers. Now, you go to Kantamanto and you have, let's say, 200 people. You provide them with a minimum insurance covers, knowing that 80% chances there's going to be fire. At the end of the day, the premiums that we are going to get, would it be enough to even pay for the losses that will come? Even 50% of it, it will not be. We will also have to look at the commercial sense of the business, because your shareholders won't forgive you if you go picking up risks that you know are going to have losses in the future. So yes, products are being developed, but it will take a bit of time for us to narrow down to the requirements of the people within that segment.
And in developing your products, I'm sure you do a good bit of research and you keep your ear, so to speak, to the ground. You try to speak to your potential clients, potential beneficiaries of your products and services. Would you say that the small market traders in Ghana would welcome insurance in one way or the other? Fire insurance, flood insurance, theft or accidental damage insurance to their goods or their property?
I believe in the past, people didn't want to hear anything about insurance, but now it's something that everyone is embracing. And I believe in not too long from here, we're going to have a lot of people buying insurance. As products are also being developed, it will also entice people to buy. The flexibility at which the products are offered, the flexibility at which the terms are disclosed to the clients will also propel people to rope in the concept of buying insurance. Yes.
When you look at our local markets that looked like the Kantamanto market before it was burned down, I'm sure you can identify lots of high-risk areas and features. What are some of these key ones, and how would you want them to be addressed so as to make it relatively easier or less risky for insurers such as yourself to offer fire insurance to business people operating in these environments?
Well, I believe one common feature that we always see is the issue of the illegal connection of electricity, which has been the bane of most fires in these markets. The other side of it is the structures itself. The wooden structures need to be modernized. I believe this outbreaks, not so happy it's okay, but I believe this is the time for us to take a shift and reconstruct the markets and make it more conducive for other people to also be interested in providing solutions. And then also the market, the traders should come together in groups. I believe when they are groups and they are able to find a common place of storing their wealth after close of the day, and some monitoring mechanism is put in place to make sure that if you have insurance with a particular company, there are certain requirements that at the end of the day you have to maybe go through and declare whatever you've deposited at the, let's call it a warehouse. Then we will be interested in providing solutions to make sure that if there are fire outbreaks and things are damaged from the warehouse, then we know that some information is gathered and we'll be able to analyze and determine values and offer quick claims and compensations to potential clients from there.
Earlier on in our conversation, you mentioned the fact that, to the best of your memory, it is the formal sector in Ghana, formal employment, that has the highest subscription rate to fire insurance, whereas in the informal sector, it is comparatively low. Looking at the fact that it is the informal sector which accounts for most of our trade and business in Ghana, what do you think can be done to make sure that the informal sector is drawn into culture of insuring itself against fire and other hazards?
I believe education is one key component of this development. A lot of education is being done now to get people to be aware of the existence of insurance and the products that they can take advantage of. And again, like I said, people need to organize themselves into groups so that you have a common bargaining power and you'll be able to be administered a product that serves the needs of the group. Now, if we have all this in place, then it will be more easy for people to develop products to suit their needs. If you come to the formal sector, there's a lot of people in business who see buying insurance as a cost to their operations. And so they don't see any reason why, if I can pay a premium and add it to my expenditure and recover from my sales, why shouldn't I buy the insurance? But when you go to the informal sector, they don't see it that way. They believe buying insurance is reducing their profit. So then they would rather keep their money and trade with it and expose themselves to all these hazards. So the education and getting them to know that, yes, when you buy insurance, you are not reducing your profit, but actually you are buying a peace of mind, and you are also buying security, so that if there's any event, you have some compensation and enable you carry on with your business without difficulty.
You work with Priority Insurance. You're the general manager of operations of Priority Insurance. Would you say that most of your clients are in the formal sector or in the informal sector?
We have a combination.
What's the split? Is it like roughly 50-50, 40-60, and in favor of?
Again, we have a greater percentage of the formal sector. But we are trying to develop more micro products to be able to rope in people from the informal sector.
Okay, we've got some posts from viewers. I'd like to share some with you and with anyone who doesn't have an internet connection. If you do, just try to log on to the internet, find facebook.com, and when you get to Facebook, just look for TV3 Space Sunrise. Like the page, and that will enable you to share your views, your thoughts, your comments, and your suggestions. I'm also opening up the phone lines as we speak. It's 030-2763-470. I can read it off the monitor we have in the studio, so I'm sure you can read it on your screens at home. Kofi Isaac Sirifi Jr. says he thinks that fire safety should be compulsory. Well, Isaac, it is compulsory. The fact is that we don't seem to be complying with the law that stipulates it as a compulsory aspect of every commercial business. Junior Focus says we are having fire extinguishers in our homes, but most people don't even know how to use them or how to distinguish the good ones from the bad ones. Now that's one risk I'd like you to take note of, because I'll ask you a question about that. Felix I is asking whether the higher the amount insured, the higher the compensation would be in the way premiums, risks, and payments are calculated. I think that's what the question is about. Shadrach Pindukulu Faith says, well, if the risk is so high, why not just raise the premium up? I wonder if that could have been something you could have done for a location such as the Kantamanto market. Fafali Hanoba thinks that the fire is an opportunity for us to construct a more modern market, and I think that echoes your thought, George. Felix once again asks how fast a business should be able to recover from a fire disaster when it is insured. And Silvanus Martilai thinks that the solution to stopping fires at our marketplace is definitely not insurance, George. He says he believes that traders will further throw caution to the wind if they know that they are covered by insurance. And that last thought, I think, is a really interesting one.
It is. You know, when you buy insurance, part of the conditions indicate that you should act as if you are uninsured. So you don't just buy insurance and go to sleep, that when you see something happening that could result in a loss, you don't take any action because insurance will pay. No.
So how do you investigate that? If you are the insurer, you would want to find out what caused the fire. And I can share this with you. Recently, I called up some of our top authorities and I was asking for a fire forensic investigator, that specializes in fire. I couldn't find one. How would you investigate the cause of a fire, who is liable, who is not, in the event that your client comes in and says, look, everything burnt down, please pay me?
Yeah, usually for every claim that is processed by an insurance company, we conduct investigations. Our claims office train us enough to be able to conduct basic investigations that will be
fire forensics. You can come to a site like Cantamanto, you can look around like we see in some of the Hollywood movies, and you can mentally reconstruct a picture of how it happened.
We won't go in the skills of the LAPDs, but then we will rely on the fire service to give us their independent report. Then we have loss adjusters, we have other technically sound people who will compare the police report, talk to people, talk to witnesses, and then put the pieces together to come to conclusions. We might not 100% be able to establish the actual cause, but then it gives us an idea of what has happened.
So you don't make payments out automatically. You investigate the event and you try to find out what actually occurred.
We have to. Most cases, we also buy reinsurance. And when you have settled, you need to make your claim to your reinsurer. And if there are things that you don't take cognizance of, and then it happens that your reinsurers point it out, then you also will lose your recovery from your reinsurers. So we take steps to do some basic investigations to make sure that they are comfortable and our reinsurers will also be comfortable.
Okay, talking about comfortable, I want to take a call from one of our viewers, Fifi from Takoradi, and whilst I'm speaking to him, I want you to look around the studio, and when we come back, tell me how comfortable you are about our safety in terms of fire in a television studio. Good morning, Fifi.
Hello. Say again.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, Fifi.
Yeah.
You are welcome to Sunrise. You are live on air.
Yeah. What I want to say is, it's not a matter of people not wanting to insure, but the insurance agencies, I think, need to streamline their mode of payment in times of disaster, because when people insure and they expect payment when the time is due, and then the process they have to go through is hectic. So they have to streamline some of these things to make people get somewhat they feel they will have to do it, because in times of disaster they will get a benefit.
Thank you very much for that, Fifi. And that, I think, it's a sentiment that runs generally throughout the business and even the individual community in Ghana, that when it comes to insurance, insurers are prone to receive payments, take money much more quickly than when it comes to paying out damages in case of the unfortunate occurring.
Eric, I think there's been a lot of improvement in this area. There are companies, and I could speak for my company, that are paying claims within 48 hours. Now, what happens is you need to provide documentation. Once you're able to provide the documentation necessary for us to determine the liability, then we come to the quantum. Once we determine liability, we come to the quantum. Well, your claim is admissible based on the figures and information that we have. This is the amount that the policy enjoins us to pay. Once you agree, you sign a document that yes, I accept this offer of amount that you have to pay to me, and within 48 hours you pick up your claim. But sometimes the claimants themselves are unable to provide the document speedily, and they delay. But then when the documents come, they count from the day they lodge the claim and say there's been a delay in the payment. It is not always so. I will admit there are few bad nuts in every society, but things have improved drastically compared to what used to happen in the past.
Thank you. Let's take a call from Ralph in Takoradi. Good morning, Ralph. Okay, that was a very brief call. And I keep invoking the name of Kweku Sechado. He told me, sitting right where you're sitting, George, that 99.9% of our calls go through, and that's what the industry has established as acceptable service delivery. Talking about the acceptability of risk, would you say that the risk is higher in the public sector, in the formal sector, or in the informal sector?
You know, there's a multiplicity of events that determines how risky a property is. You have to look at what goes on within the premises. You have to look at what processes are involved. So just looking at maybe a brewery will not say that that is a very high risk compared to a full manufacturing. So there are categories that we as insurers over the period and statistical data has put together. So depending on what you do and the type of structures that you have, we'll be able to place you within a bracket of a risk exposure.
That's interesting. Let's take a call from Luis, calling us from Tema. Good morning, Luis. Okay, I think I can't take any more calls this morning because this is getting a bit difficult to handle. When it comes to a basic minimum, has any research been done as to what could apply to a market trader?
We don't have complete statistics yet, but I'll say anyone who wants to insure any particular risk will have to determine the exposure and come up with a premium rates that will be good enough to pay for the pure risk, that is the risk of the loss occurring, have some for investment management expense. The premium build-up has components, so you should be able to determine, most importantly, the pure risk, the risk of paying for the losses that are likely to come from the risk.
Okay, and that's exactly the question that Humphrey Adomiko posts to us via our page on Facebook. He's asking about whether insurance pays for all the loss in the instance of a fire outbreak, or whether it just compensates partially some of the losses. How do you calculate the loss, the payments that you give out to victims of fire?
Yeah, there are various types of policies, but what we commonly use on our market is that your sum insured, or the value you place on the insurance, becomes the maximum liability of the insurance company. So if you insure your property for, let's say, 50,000 Ghana cedis, that becomes the maximum liability to the insurer. So when there is a loss, then we will look at, is it actually 50,000 that you have lost, or it was a lesser amount, or is it higher than the 50,000? Then we will look at the policy. Usually we have what we call excess or deductible, something to make you more careful in managing your risk. So when there's a loss, you bear some little portion of the loss, and this is put in the policies to make sure that people act as if they are uninsured. But apart from that, you should get full compensation for your values.
Okay, lots of skepticism seems to be on our page this morning when it comes to insurance. Maulo Mbubo posts that the less we talk about insurance, the better it is for all of us, because after getting insurance, you have to chase the insurer for what you are due, even when you have all the documents that the insurer demands. But Insuraba Lawrence Kete says, well, insurance should be important for every marketplace so that when they go through problems, they get help. Felix wants to know what the additional perils are when it comes to a fire insurance policy, other than the loss of physical goods, for example, or the value of the premises. And Adokoyado says that the problem is that Ghanaians are not ready for change. When it comes to insurance, it is good, but on the other hand, we don't get to understand what the bad or the difficult side of an insurance policy is, because insurance don't explain it. They don't really explain the risks, the pros and the cons. What would you say to some of these posts?
I believe when you buy insurance, or when you are buying insurance policy, you should ask the company to explain every detail of what they are offering you. Now, after the explanation is done, you'll be given evidence of your insurance in the form of a policy document. Take time and read the policy document. If there's any term or any phrase that you do not understand, get back to your insurance broker, your insurance agent, or the insurance company and seek clarification. It's very important.
Before you pay the money?
You might have paid the money before you are given the policy, but then you can ask for a copy of the policy to read and be sure of what you want to buy before you even sign on to the policy. It's allowed.
Is there a law that would compel an insurance salesman to explain the policy to the prospective client so that they really understand what they are paying for and what they might be paid in the eventuality of the unfortunate occurring?
There is no law per se in our country, but then we work with principles and ethics. Now, there's a cardinal principle of utmost good faith, which means that whatever you offer to your client, you must do it in good faith. You do not hide conditions and clauses. You must disclose every information, just as you require the client to also disclose every information to you. If there's any term in the policy or anything that you believe might hinder the client making their claims, you must disclose that to them and draw their attention to read further in the policy document. We even go these days that at the time of buying the policy, we tell you what you have to do in case of a claim. We don't wait for the event to occur and then you are found wanting. We tell you, we add it as part of the policy document, that if you have a claim, these are the steps you need to follow, these are the documents you need to get. And once you go by those directions or directives, it's easy to make your claim.
Okay, we have another caller. Dennis calling us from Kumasi. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise.
Hello, Eric. Good morning.
Thank you for calling. You're live on air. Dennis, it sounds like you just hung up or the line cut. So try to get back. Simple question from Felix. What are the requirements for purchasing a fire insurance policy? What are the basic requirements?
The basic requirement is to have a property, which you must have a legal attachment to, because you can't go and insure someone's property so you benefit from it.
Oh, wait. So if one is a worker in a company, one cannot purchase fire insurance of any sort?
No, you can't do that.
Only
for
the
company.
owner of the property can do that.
Yeah.
So you have to be the owner.
Sure.
That's number one. What's number two?
Now, once you are the owner recognized, then you need a financial value of the assets. Once you have this, that is enough to buy insurance. The rest will be for the insurance company to come and have a look at the asset that you are bringing on board and then determine the premium. Proposal forms to solicit basic information is completed, and that should be enough to incept a policy.
This thing you said about fire insurance being a legal requirement for all commercial concerns, this must give you some concern for worry, because in a way it's literally loss of income for you. I'm talking about non-compliance with this requirement. Who's responsible for monitoring and regulating businesses for their compliance with fire insurance, in the way that the police check vehicles to see if they have third-party insurance?
There's actually a collaboration between the police, the fire service, and then the insurance commission to see to the this law being enforced. Now, we realize that a lot of education needs to be done. So in fact, as I speak from here, we're moving to Takoradi to organize a seminar to educate the populace about this law. Now, these are some of the ways that we are bringing it to the knowledge of people that it is a legal requirement that you have to fulfill. And if you breach it, it's a criminal offense.
Why does it have to be enforced, though? Isn't it just common sense for someone to want to secure themselves against such risk? Is it so expensive to buy an insurance policy? If I had a small market stall and goods worth, say, 5,000 or 10,000 Ghana cedis, what would my insurance premium be, and how often would I have to pay it?
Insurance premiums for non-life policies are paid once a year.
Once a year?
Yes. And usually you pay that at the beginning of the contract. Your premium is determined. And for the compulsory fire, we have a market acceptable minimum rate of 0.2%.
It's not even 1%, 0.2.
Yes.
0.2% of the value
of the value
of what you want to insure.
Yes.
So if if you want to insure 10,000 CDs worth of.
Yeah, but again, we look at the.
You're talking about would insure your property up to a value of 10,000 CDs.
Yes, if the mathematics is right, I can place a finger right
Okay.
now. But then that's how it works out, 0.2%. But we will look at the risk. Is it whether 0.2 or we need to increase it a bit because you have some features that makes it more hazardous. Now we look at all this, and what we are doing by the compulsory insurance is to generate funding for the firefighting agencies in the country, because a levy is charged on every commercial insurance that is affected, and that money is set aside for the fire prevention exercise, and that is also backed by the same Insurance Act.
Oh, I think I made a mistake in my calculations. It looks like
It's about 26.
it's 2,000 actually. 10,000 times 0.2 is 2,000. Could that be possible?
No,
Or 0.2%?
0.2%. Yeah, so that would be about 20 CDs. So.
That's about 20. That's not even 200 CDs.
But every insurance company will have what we call minimum premiums, because we have to do documentation, policy issue, and all that. So we set minimum premiums that we will charge for every risk.
Yes, that is 20 CDs.
Yeah.
So if you calculate additional risks, that could perhaps go up what, 5-fold?
It's
100 CDs?
It's cheap. Virtually, you pay nothing to buy insurance.
It costs so little.
Yes,
How difficult is it to get the 10,000 back?
it's not difficult.
It's not difficult at all.
If we go by what I've just explained, that at the time of buying your policy, ask your company to provide you all the information that you need, and even tell you how you make your claims. It's easy. And our regulator is making sure that if you go into any insurance relationship and you are being shortchanged, you can walk into their offices and lodge a complaint, and the insurance company will be dealt with.
What has higher risks associated with it? Vehicle insurance or fire insurance in Ghana?
I think by statistics, vehicle insurance
It's higher risk, and that's why most vehicle insurance premiums are higher than 20 Ghana cedis, even if you're looking at a 10,000
Yes.
CD insurance policy. Shadrach Pindukulu Faith, you want to know if insurance of this sort also makes payments out in the event of the loss of life. And that will be my last question to you.
The loss of life will either be a life insurance policy or where the individual has taken a personal accident policy, and then the death occurs as a result of an accident. Then you'll be able to make a recovery, or some compensation will be made.
Okay, thank you very much. George Appiah Diet, the General Operations Manager of Priority Insurance Company Limited, an underwriter in the business. He's just tried to explain some of the finer points and some of the principles that govern the insurance industry. And I've learned, to my great surprise and a degree of relief, that in actual fact, commercial entities, every commercial premise is supposed to be insured against fire by law. I've also learned that basic premiums are calculated at ballpark rate of 0.2%. In other words, if you want to insure 10,000 CDs worth of your stall and goods, your stock, you're going to have to pay 20 CDs at the beginning of the year. It might go up depending on the risk factors that are evaluated, but then it will hardly go past 100 or 200 CDs. It looks like a good thing. So I wonder why so many of us are not taking advantage of this, or actually complying with it, since it is the law. I want to thank everyone who's contributed to my conversation with George Appiah Diet, especially Samuel Quay, who posts and says that insurance companies can do better by introducing innovative products to the informal sector. Keep watching Sunrise.